Alright, so in this class I'll be explaining to you guys how you can be able to differentiate between logical and relational operators in Python, and of course how you can be able to utilize them accordingly. Alright, so now let's say for the logical operators, we all know that we have this following. For the logical operators, we have greater than, we have less than, we have, let me add it here. So we have greater than, we have less than, we have greater than and equals to, and we have less than and equals to, sorry, then we have not equals to, and we have equals to. So for the equals to, we use a double equal sign, so now you can see. And for the logical operators, we have and, we have or, and we have a not operators. So now let's take a look at how we can use them. So assuming we have a value with num1, which can be equals to, let's say, 5, and num2, which is equals to, let's say, 7. So I can be able to output using my relational operators. So I can say print, because I'm trying to compare the two values, both the values 1 and values. So I can say print let's say, so I can say print num1 is greater than what? Is greater than num2. So I should add a description so that I will know what is happening at the end, because it will only return the true or false statement. So I can just add a description here. Let's say num1 is greater than num2. So you can see. So this is going to be, let's run this and see what it's going to return. If we run this program where we have num1 as 5 and where we also have num2 as 7, so when we run this, what's going to be our expected output? So I can just run this and you can see num1 is greater than num2. So the output return false statement, that is 5 is not greater than what? 5 is not greater than 7. So now left, what if wants to run for greater than? So for less than. So I can just copy this and then I will just change this descriptions to less than, and I will have to change this symbol back to the less than. You can see that. So I can do the same thing for greater than and equals to, greater than or equals. Then I will change this one. I will add an equal sign here. I can also run this for less than and equals. Less than and equals. Then I will have to change and add an equal sign here. Then I can also run this thing for equal. So I can say num1 is equal to num2, and I have to change this one to double equal sign, and for the last one, not equal sign, I can still paste and change this to not equal. We use exclamation to represent not, so you can see. So you can see when I now say print num1 is what? Is not equal. So I can just change this to not equals, and I'll remove this down to num2. So now let's run this and let's see what our output will be, and you'll see all our outputs. So you can see num1 is greater than num2, which is a false. 5 is not greater than 7. Num1 is less than num2. You can see num1 is less than num2. Still have we have num1 is less than num2. We're supposed to be true, but we're having false. Let's check. Num1 is less than num2, so you can see our num1 is 5, so definitely it's less than it's less than num2. Then the next one said num1 is equals to num2, so you can see 5 is not equals to 7. Num1 is not what? You can see this. Num1 is not equals to num2, which is true. 5 is not equals to what? 5 is not equals to 7. But we can also use a print user input, so I can also have users to enter their desired values by just removing the values here and I replace it with input function. So you can see my input function. I can just ask for the number 1, enter number 1, then I can remove this and just replace this with enter number 2, so that user can be able to enter their desired value instead of the assigned value that we got the other time. So this will make system to prompt and ask users to enter each of their values. So we'll run this and let's see how the output of this will look like. So now you can see the console is asking me for the number 1. So let's say number 1 is 6 and number 2 is 8. So you can see it will run based on all our print function. Alright, so we can also apply the same thing for relational operators. We don't need to waste our time on that. So for the relational operators, I can just come and say, okay, num1 is greater than num2. Then I can just add or num2 is greater than num1. So you can see. So you see. So now if I run this, let me remove this other ones. Let's take this one out. Okay. So now you see now we are still working on the same num1 and num2 again. So I can just print num1 is greater than num2. You can see. Or print num2 is greater than num1. So let's see what it's going to print and return for us. You can see it's requesting for the values 4, second value 5, and you can see num1 is greater than num2. You can see, or because we are using or operator, so or is going to pick, if any of the condition is true, is going to pick the true condition and return it as what, as a true statement, because we say num1 is greater than what, num2, but num1 is not greater than num2, but because of this or that is executing this one, num2 is greater than num1, so it will return or because of this statement. So we can also run the same thing for the and let's see what and is going to return for us. So if I pick this and I paste it somewhere around here, then I can change this to what, to and. You can see num1 is greater than num2 and num2 is greater than num1, so this is automatically going to return what we call a first statement. So now let's run this and see. If I put the same 4 and I put the same, if I put the same 4, then I reply with the same 5. So you see this is going to be what, a first statement, because num1 is not greater than num2 and num2 is not greater than what, num1. So we can also be able to run not, just add a not, and you're going to have your result as is here. So I hope this one will help. See you in my next class.